Hey there viewers, I got a 2013 Audi A6 here. Customer's concern is no AC. I'm about to hook up my AC machine to it, and as you can see it's already in vacuum, which is good practice. You should always keep your machine empty and in vacuum. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my low side. As soon as that pressure rises, you let go. Don't just jam these in there. Okay, so now my high side. And it looks like we got static pressure. The AC button is on, but it looks like that compressor is not running. Another thing to notice is that the fans are not running as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this vehicle up and check for either 12 volt positive to the compressor, or I believe it's a pulse width modulated signal from the PCM if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna get my scope ready just in case, as well as my power probe, and just to not have to bring it down again, and we'll take it from there. Alright, so I'm underneath the car and I am back probed to the blue and brown wire to our AC compressor regulator valve, and I'm going to hook up my power probe to see what we get. And if you're in volts DC mode, this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a varying voltage. This is because it's supposed to be a pulse width modulated signal. It's not gonna be just 12 volt direct. So we could look at AC RMS, see our average of about 80 to 85, 0.80 to 85 volts. We could take a look at peak to peak. So it's about 2 volts from peak to peak. We can look at our hertz, our frequency. We got about 4 hertz, and we can see our pulse width. We got more down pulse width than our up pulse width, so to speak. It's a very low duty cycle. If I'm not mistaken, it might even be 5%. But what I'm gonna do now is hook up my scope and check the same line, see what our duty cycle is, and if we have anything more than 20% duty cycle, then I'm calling the compressor. Okay, so now I am back pulled with my scope to the same line, and as you can see, there's our peak to peak 2 volts, but there's actually no signal. So the power probe can only go so far. Once you have a scope, you can see the real details. This is 1 volt per mark, so to speak. So there you see our 2 volts peak to peak. You can see our frequency going on, but really that's considered no signal, no duty cycle. So now we have to find out. What I'm going to do is pull codes, find out why our PCM is not, our vehicle electronics module is not sending out a signal to the AC clutch. I'm sorry, to the AC pressure regulating valve. Now I know you guys are going to say that I should have done this first, check for codes, and you would be right. But most of the time I've seen that, you know, you get signal to the compressor and it's just not working. So I've got a couple of engine control module codes. They are passive paradic codes. One for the coolant pump, which concerns me, and system too rich at idle, but I'm not worried about that too much right now. That's not our concern. We've got one code for the air conditioning control module, and it is active. It is function limitation due to received malfunction value. So it's receiving a bad message and it's causing the compressor not to operate. Also on our central electrics module, we've got AC pressure temperature sensor G395 faulty, and that is active. So that could very well be our bad message, because I'm looking at the wiring diagram and that AC pressure temperature sensor is on the high side line, and it's got a violet and white line on it. And if you look here, it's computer data line system, so it is a communication wire. So, but before we dig into that and scope that out, I want to check out our live data, see what it looks like. Come on now. Just to confirm if our live data is no good, let's put pressure. And there is our refrigerant pressure. I'm not in Europe, so bar, I know one bar is 1 atmosphere, but I like PSI better. So we've got a flicker between 50 PSI and 0. And we have an error message here on the refrigerant pressure sensor PID. So next thing I want to do is scope it out and see what we're getting. Okay, so the front of the vehicle where the condenser is at is where our pressure switch is at. First thing we're going to do is back probe our powers and grounds. Our power would be it's a black and green wire, and our ground is a solid brown wire, pin number 1. And as you can see here, our RMS for those is source voltage 14.2. So now we're going to take our positive lead from there and check our communications. See if we can zoom in a bit. It looks like a nice clean message, so I'm going to call this sensor. Codes like this tend to be right, but if that message were unclear somehow, I would check communication to that wire, to the connector. So it doesn't appear to have an issue with wiring, so I believe our message looks beautiful. Actually, let me just zoom that in for you. Perfect. I don't see no glitching, no nothing. Sometimes you would get a spike and it would show that would be an issue. So let me just grab one here and zoom in, and I see nothing wrong with this message, or any of them for that matter. Everything looks beautiful. So I'm calling it's a sensor, and I'll go ahead and replace the sensor and give you guys an update after the repairs are made. Alright fellas, so we have our new sensor here, and this has a valve, so there's no need to evacuate and recharge the system. You can just go ahead and disconnect it and remove the sensor, no problem. Not too worried about that O-ring. Now I'm not going to test the sensor signal because it's a message, it's a communication signal that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a low pressure or high pressure. But I will check the live data PID real quick just to confirm that we're not in and out of the signal, receiving the signal from this sensor here. Alright fellas, here's our live data. As you can see, our refrigerant pressure has been corrected to an even 127.6 psi, which is our static pressure. Car is on. I'm sorry, engine is not on, the ignition is on. And as you can see, our refrigerant pressure sensor status is okay. It's no longer in error mode. So I want to also provide you with a known good of a signal to the compressor pressure regulation valve. At least that way you will see what the duty cycle is supposed to look like, and we'll go from there. Alright, real quick, so we have our vehicle on, our compressor is up and running, and our vent temperature is 55-ish degrees, and it is about 100 degrees in ambient temperature out here in Miami, Florida. And I'm going to lift our vehicle up, and we're going to get a shot of the known good duty cycle to our compressor regulation valve. Alright fellas, so we have our scope set up here, and I'm going to go ahead and back probe our regulation valve to our compressor. And there's our signal. Let's go ahead and zoom in real quick. Make sure you set up your trigger. If you set up your trigger outside, your scope is blind, you won't see anything. And that is our pulse width. Now let's do some measurements. Let's see what our low and our high is. You can also see our duty cycle. Duty cycle is 42% at idle, full blast. Our low is about 400 millivolts, and our high is source voltage, almost 15 volts. Huge difference from what we saw before. There you guys have it, a known good. Let me see if I can get a frequency on this actually. I'm not sure that I could. Oh, there it is, frequency. So our frequency is 400 hertz compared to our no signal, which showed 4 hertz. Really it was a dead signal, but that's what our hertz, that's what our frequency should be at idle full blast. 400 hertz, 42% duty cycle, with a low of 400 millivolts and our battery source as our peak. Alright fellas, before I let it go real quick, I just wanted to do a recap on the whole process. Car came in with no check engine light, no light on at all. Came in with no AC. We checked our static pressure, it was over 100 psi, and as we confirmed through our known good, through our new sensor, static pressure was about 127 psi. And we connected our power probe, and it showed activity. It didn't show exactly a signal. It showed a very weak activity, 4 hertz, and a peak to peak of 2 volts, which obviously is incorrect. Our new peak to peak is from 0 to battery voltage. That is the signal that we should be getting at the compressor. So to avoid misdiagnosis, it's good to know what to expect at the compressor. You can't just guide yourself, oh, it has activity, the compressor's no good. So you never know. I wouldn't have called the scope on, the compressor on that, because of the very low frequency. That was already a heads up. And when you scope it, which is what you're supposed to do, you can see that the duty cycle was 0. There was a dead signal. There was no signal. It was just noise. And our good signal is peak to peak, 0 to battery voltage. That's our duty cycle, and as you can see at idle it was at 42%. And also we made sure that our pressure sensor wiring was good by taking a look at the message. I believe it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's under the LIN bus, and seeing that there was a good message to the connector up to the sensor, that rules out wiring integrity as an issue. Now there was no point in us rechecking the signal at the sensor, because you can't tell the difference through a communication waveform whether the pressure is 0 psi or 100 psi. There's no way to tell. It's just a message, unless you have a scanner, a scope that has the ability to decipher those codes, that message. Either way, who would waste their time? And finally, I was able to provide a known good, which I hope could be of some use to you guys. And with that, I leave it as it's fixed. You saw the new vent temp sense. You saw the new vent temp, and this car is ready to go. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I hope you can leave a comment, hit subscribe if you like what you see, hit like, tell your friends. You know, I mean, doing this for you guys. I'm not doing this for my own. Don't get me wrong. I like doing this, but in the end, it's a community. You know, just like YouTube as a whole is a community. We help each other out. Just like IATN, that's another network that's awesome. I'm in there. I love it. You know, we help each other out because sometimes you don't have all the facts that you need, and sometimes networking is the only way to get the information that you need. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for tuning in. This is Mario, and with that, I leave you until next time. Hope to see you guys soon next time. Take care.